Hungry little alien girls. Scavenged from trash. The human turned his own dinner into their feast. The stench hit Brennan first. Rotting food mixed with industrial coolant and something else. Something that made his orange tabby, Rusty, flatten his ears and growl low in his throat. 3 blocks from the cargo district's main waste processing center, Kai stopped his delivery truck and cut the engine. After 12 years hauling freight across New Geneva Colony, he'd learned to trust Rusty's instincts about danger. But this wasn't danger. This was heartbreak. 3 small figures huddled behind the massive dumpster, their pale blue skin mottled with exhaustion and malnutrition. Alien children, Zephyrian, from their delicate gill slits and large dark eyes, no older than human 8-year-olds. The smallest one, barely more than a toddler, clutched a half-eaten protein bar wrapper, licking the inside with desperate hunger. Her sisters pressed close around her, their own thin frames shaking with cold. Kai's chest tightened. His lunch, a real meal with actual vegetables from the colony's hydroponic farms, saved from 3 days of overtime pay, sat cooling in his cab. These kids were eating garbage. The middle child noticed him first, her enormous eyes going wide with terror. She grabbed her sisters, pulling them deeper into the shadows behind the waste container. The smallest began to cry, a sound like wind chimes breaking. "Hey, easy," Kai said, stepping slowly from his truck. Rusty leaped down, but instead of staying by Kai's side, the cat approached the children with careful steps. The tabby had always been strange around aliens, calmer, more intuitive. "I'm not going to hurt you." The eldest child, maybe 10 in human years, positioned herself protectively in front of her sisters. Her voice came out cracked and desperate. "Please, mister." "We didn't take nothing valuable. Just food scraps. We'll move on." The words hit Kai like a freight loader to the chest. These weren't scavengers by choice. They were refugees. Starving children reduced to eating waste because they had nowhere else to turn. His mind flashed unwillingly to his younger brother Tommy, how he'd looked those last weeks before the mining accident took their parents and left Kai struggling to feed them both on a 17-year-old's wages. He'd failed Tommy. Let the kid go hungry too many nights while Kai worked double shifts that still weren't enough. He wouldn't fail these children. "When's the last time you ate?" Kai asked, his voice gentler than he'd used in years. The eldest girl's composure cracked. 2 days, maybe 3. The shelter said they were full and the government office... She trailed off, her small shoulders shaking. Rusty had reached the children now, purring softly as he approached the smallest girl. Incredibly, she stopped crying and reached out tentative fingers to touch his orange fur. The moment she made contact, something extraordinary happened. The air around her seemed to shimmer slightly, and Rusty's purr deepened to an almost hypnotic rumble. "You're Zephyrians," Kai said, recognition dawning. He'd hauled cargo to the outer rim colonies where their people lived in harmony with energy fields and atmospheric currents. "Your people don't usually come to the core worlds alone." The middle child spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. "Our mama got sick on the transport ship. They put us off here when she couldn't pay the rest of our passage." "Where is she now?" "Colony Medical Ward," the eldest said. "They won't let us see her. Say we need a guardian or sponsor." Kai made his decision. Walking back to his truck, he retrieved his lunch container. Real stewed nerf with vegetables, fresh bread, and even a packet of sweet gel for dessert. His stomach protested, but he ignored it. He'd been hungry before. These kids were starving. "This is for you," he said, setting the container down within their reach. "All of it." The children stared at him with disbelief. The smallest girl's eyes filled with tears, but now they were tears of hope rather than despair. As they fell upon the food, sharing it equally despite their hunger, Kai noticed something remarkable. Wherever their small hands touched, the food seemed to glow faintly, as if their very essence was reacting to the kindness. Rusty settled beside them, his presence clearly comforting to all 3 children. The cat's behavior convinced Kai these weren't ordinary refugee children. Zephyrians were known for their empathic abilities and connection to energy systems, but he'd never seen reactions quite like this. "What are your names?" he asked, settling down a careful distance away. "I'm Lyria," the eldest said between bites. "This is Naia," she indicated the middle child, "and little Zara." The toddler waved at him with sticky fingers, already looking more alert. "I'm Kai. This is Rusty." The cat chirped at his name, making Zara giggle, the first happy sound he'd heard from any of them. As they ate, Kai found himself studying their faces. Beneath the hunger and exhaustion, he could see intelligence and dignity. These weren't just any refugee children. Something about their bearing, the way even the youngest held herself, suggested they came from a family of importance. "We'll figure out how to help your mother," he heard himself saying, "and get you somewhere safe." Lyria looked up at him with those enormous dark eyes, and for a moment, Kai felt a strange sensation, as if she was seeing straight through to his soul, understanding the pain he carried from losing Tommy, recognizing in him someone who would never again let children go hungry while he had the power to feed them. "Thank you," she whispered, and the words carried weight beyond gratitude. They carried trust, hope, and something that felt remarkably like recognition. Over the next hour, as the children slowly regained their strength from the first real meal they'd had in days, Kai learned their story. Their mother, Commander Thyra of the 7th Atmospheric Fleet, had been traveling to a medical conference on New Geneva when a sudden illness struck during transport. Without proper documentation or credits for extended treatment, the transport company had simply deposited the family at the nearest port. "Mama's got the singing sickness," little Zara explained, her words still slightly slurred with exhaustion. "Makes her throat all sparkly, but not the good kind." Kai frowned. He'd heard of the condition, a respiratory infection that affected Zephyrian's unique vocal capabilities, sometimes fatal if untreated. The Colony Medical Center should be able to handle that. "They can," Lyria said bitterly, "but only for sponsored residents, or those with full citizenship documentation. We're visitors, and our travel permits expired when Mama got too sick to renew them." The bureaucratic catch-22 made Kai's blood boil. Sick woman trapped in medical limbo while her children starved in the streets because of paperwork. He'd seen similar situations with human refugees, but somehow it felt worse knowing these children had special abilities that could benefit the colony if anyone bothered to recognize their potential. Rusty had settled himself directly between the girls, and Kai noticed that all three seemed calmer with the cat nearby. Zara, in particular, kept one tiny hand buried in his orange fur, and whenever she did, the air around them felt somehow lighter, more breathable. "Can I ask you something?" Kai said carefully. "What happens when you touch things? I noticed the food seemed to glow." The girls exchanged glances. Naia spoke up. "Mama says we're not supposed to show our gifts to strangers. Some people get scared or try to use us." "I'm not going to hurt you or use you," Kai said. "But if you've got abilities that might help your situation." Lyria considered this, her mature expression heartbreaking on such a young face. Finally, she reached out and placed her palm against the side of Kai's truck. Immediately, the vehicle's electrical systems hummed with new efficiency. Lights brightening, engine cooling system running smoother. "We can harmonize with mechanical systems," she explained. "Make them work better, last longer. Mama says it's because we understand the energy flows that connect all things." Kai stared at his truck's dashboard, watching readings that had been sluggish for months now display in optimal ranges. "That's incredible. Do you know how valuable that skill would be to the colony's infrastructure department?" "If they cared about aliens," Naia said quietly. Before Kai could respond, a shadow fell across them. A tall Zephyrian woman approached, her bearing unmistakably military despite her civilian clothes. Her skin held the same pale blue tint as the children, but with the deeper saturation that came with age and full development. Even weakened by illness, Kai could hear the slight rasp in her breathing. She moved with commanding presence. "Step away from my daughters," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate with authority. The children scrambled to their feet. "Mama!" Zara cried, running to her mother's arms. Commander Thyra caught her youngest daughter, but her eyes never left Kai. They were the same large dark eyes as her children, but filled with suspicion and protective fury. "What do you want with them?" Kai stood slowly, hands visible. "I was feeding them. They were hungry." "Humans don't feed alien children from kindness," Thyra said, her words clipped with exhaustion and fear. "What's your price?" The assumption stung, but Kai understood it. In his experience, most people did have ulterior motives, especially when dealing with those they saw as outsiders. "No price. I saw kids who needed help." Rusty chose that moment to wind around Thyra's legs, purring. The woman looked down in surprise as the cat's presence seemed to ease her breathing slightly. Zara giggled from her mother's arms. "Rusty likes Mama," she announced. "He likes all of us. Says we taste like sunshine." Thyra's eyebrows rose. "Your animal speaks to my daughter?" "Not speaks exactly," Kai said, watching Rusty with new interest. "But he's always been good with people. Animals sometimes pick up on things we miss." Slowly, carefully, Thyra set Zara down but kept her daughters close. Her gaze swept over the empty food container, then back to Kai. "You gave them your own meal. They needed it more than I did." For a long moment, mother and children seemed to communicate through glances and subtle touches. Finally, Thyra's posture softened slightly. "I am Commander Thyra Solaris of the 7th Fleet. These are my daughters, Solaris." Kai's knowledge of Zephyrian culture was limited, but even he recognized that name. The Solaris family were among the most respected military leaders in Zephyrian space, known for their diplomatic skills and technological innovations. "Kai Brennan," he replied. "Freight hauler, local." "You know who we are," Thyra observed, noting his reaction to the name. "I know you're important people who deserve better than sleeping behind dumpsters because of bureaucratic nonsense." Something shifted in Thyra's expression. Surprise, perhaps even the beginning of respect. "Most humans would see opportunity in our situation." "Most humans are idiots," Kai said bluntly, earning a small smile from Lyria. Thyra's breathing hitched, and she swayed slightly. Naia immediately moved to support her mother, her small hands glowing faintly as she touched Thyra's arm. The commander's breathing eased. "You shouldn't be out of medical care," Kai said, concern overriding diplomatic caution. "The medical center won't treat me further without a sponsor or updated documentation," Thyra replied, exhaustion creeping into her voice. "And I won't leave my children on the streets while I recover." The solution came to Kai, suddenly, completely, and with absolute certainty that it was the right thing to do despite every practical reason to stay uninvolved. "Then come home with me," he said, "all of you, until we figure out something better." 4 pairs of identical dark eyes stared at him in shock. "You don't know us," Thyra said carefully. "I know you're a mother trying to protect her children, and they're good kids who've been dealt a bad hand," Kai replied. "I know you're all exhausted and need somewhere safe. And I know my apartment has space if you don't mind sleeping on couches." "Why would you do this?" Thyra asked. But her voice held wonder now rather than suspicion. Kai looked at the 3 little girls, remembering Tommy's face during those hungry nights so many years ago. "Because someone should have helped when I needed it and didn't." Maybe this evens the score. Rusty meowed approvingly and began walking toward Kai's truck, clearly expecting everyone to follow. Kai's apartment in the colony's working district was small but clean. 2 bedrooms, a living area with a pull-out couch, and a kitchen that actually had a window overlooking the hydroponics towers. After settling Thyra and the girls with blankets and pillows, he'd made a quick run to the market, spending most of his weekly food budget on supplies suitable for Zephyrian dietary needs. The transformation in the children over just 2 days was remarkable. With regular meals and safety, their natural energy began to emerge. More importantly, their unique abilities became apparent in everyday situations. When Kai's ancient heating unit finally gave up with a mechanical wheeze, Lyria had simply placed her hands on the control panel. Within minutes, not only was the heat working again, but the entire building's climate system was running at peak efficiency for the first time in years. "How did you do that?" Kai asked, watching his utility readings drop to levels he hadn't seen since moving in. "The machine was fighting itself," Lyria explained, sitting cross-legged on his couch with Rusty purring in her lap. "The energy flows were all tangled. I just helped them remember how they wanted to work." Naia's gift manifested differently. She could sense the emotional resonance of objects and spaces, feeling the history embedded in them. "This apartment has happy memories," she told Kai that first night, her small hand pressed against the wall. "Someone loved living here before you." She was right. The previous tenant had been an elderly woman who'd raised her grandchildren in this space. Somehow, Naia could feel the echoes of that contentment, but it was Zara's developing abilities that truly amazed Kai. The youngest child seemed to amplify the positive effects of her sister's gifts. When all three girls worked together, the results were extraordinary. His building's ancient elevator, which had been making concerning noises for months, now ran smooth as silk. The communal areas felt brighter, more welcoming. Thyra, recovering steadily with proper rest and the herbal remedies Kai had purchased, watched her daughters with a mixture of pride and concern. "They're strong for their age," she told Kai on the third evening as they sat in his small kitchen while the girls played with Rusty in the living room. "Stronger than they should be. Usually our abilities don't fully manifest until adolescence." "Is that bad?" Thyra hesitated. "It means they're responding to external stress by developing faster than normal. Their gifts are adapting to protect them and those they've bonded with." "Bonded with you," Thyra said simply, "and your companion. They've accepted you as family, which means their abilities will naturally extend to include you in their protection." The word sent an unexpected warmth through Kai's chest. Family. He hadn't had family since Tommy died 8 years ago. Is that why everything in my life suddenly seems to be working better? Exactly. You showed them kindness when they were vulnerable. In Zephyrian culture, that creates bonds deeper than blood. Thyra paused, studying his face. "I should warn you. Those bonds work both ways. You're probably feeling more settled, more emotionally balanced than usual." She was right. The constant low-level anxiety that had plagued Kai since Tommy's death had eased. He slept better, felt more hopeful about the future. "I thought it was just having people around again." "It's more than that. My daughters are empathically healing trauma you've carried for years." Thyra's voice was soft with gratitude. "They're giving back what you've given them." That evening, as Kai helped the girls prepare for sleep on the living room couches, Zara tugged at his shirt. "Kai, are you our daddy now?" The question hit him like a physical blow, not painful, but overwhelming in its simple trust. I'm your friend. Your mama's your mama. But you take care of us like a daddy," Naia said, matter of fact. "Mama says human families can be made lots of ways." Kai glanced toward the kitchen, where Thyra was washing dishes. Their eyes met, and he saw something there that made his heart race, not just gratitude, but genuine affection. The realization that his feelings toward her had grown beyond mere protective instinct was both thrilling and terrifying. "We'll figure out what we are as we go," Kai said finally, tucking blankets around the girls. "For now, you're safe, fed, and loved. That's what matters." The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Kai opened his door to find 3 official-looking humans in colony administration uniforms, flanked by a Zephyrian male in elaborate robes. "Mr. Brennan? I'm Director Hassan from Colonial Integration Services," the lead official said. "We understand you're harboring undocumented aliens." Behind him, the robed Zephyrian stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Quintus Marix, representing Zephyrian interests in this sector. We've received reports about the Solaris family. Kai's protective instincts flared. They're not harbored. They're guests recovering from illness. Commander Solaris and her daughters are persons of significant importance to the Zephyrian Confederation. Ambassador Marix said smoothly. Their safety and proper care are matters of interstellar diplomacy. From behind, Kai came a voice filled with icy authority. I'm quite capable of speaking for myself. Thyra appeared, fully dressed in the formal uniform she'd somehow managed to maintain through their ordeal. Even weakened by illness, her commanding presence filled the doorway. The girls flanked her, suddenly looking far more regal than their young age suggested. Ambassador Marix, Thyra said coolly. How convenient that the Confederation's concern manifests only after a human citizen provided what our own people's diplomatic corps apparently could not. The ambassador's expression tightened. Commander, your family's situation has created complications. There are proper channels for such matters. The proper channels, Kai said harshly, left 3 little girls eating garbage while their mother was denied medical care because of paperwork. Director Hassan cleared his throat. Mr. Brennan, while your intentions may have been admirable, you've inadvertently involved yourself in complex diplomatic matters. The Solaris family will need to be transferred to appropriate facilities while their status is resolved. No. Kai stepped protectively in front of Thyra and the girls. They stay here until Commander Solaris decides otherwise. You have no legal standing. Hassan began. Actually, Thyra interrupted. He does. Under Zephyrian law, one who provides sanctuary during medical crisis becomes temporary guardian with full parental authority. Mr. Brennan's legal standing supersedes colonial bureaucracy until I formally revoke it. Ambassador Marix looked genuinely surprised. Commander, surely you don't intend to leave your daughters with a civilian? The disdain in his voice sparked anger in Kai's chest. But Thyra's response was devastating in its calm precision. I intend to leave my daughters, with the only person in this sector who put their welfare above political convenience. If that troubles the Confederation's diplomatic corps, perhaps they should examine their own failures of duty. As the officials retreated with promises to reassess the situation, Kai found himself alone with his unexpected family, realizing that whatever happened next, he would fight to keep them together. The attack came at dawn, 3 days after the diplomatic visit. Kai woke to Rusty's urgent yowling and the sound of his building's emergency systems failing in sequence. Through his bedroom window, he could see unmarked shuttles landing in the district plaza, not colony security, but something far more dangerous. Thyra was already awake, moving with military efficiency despite her lingering illness. Corporate extraction team, she said grimly, recognizing the vehicle's configuration. Someone wants my daughter's abilities for themselves. The girls huddled together on the couch, their natural radiance dim with fear. But as Kai watched, he saw something else in their expressions. Determination. Even little Zara, barely 4 years old, set her jaw with unmistakable resolve. They want to separate us, Naia said, her empathic abilities clearly reading the intentions of their attackers. Use our gifts to fix their broken machines. Kai felt rage build in his chest, the same fury that had consumed him when Tommy died. Helpless anger at systems that treated people as resources to be exploited. But this time, he wasn't helpless. This time, he had something to fight with. Can you girls do something about the building's defenses? He asked. Make them work better than they're supposed to? Lyria's eyes widened with understanding. If we work together, we could overcharge the electromagnetic barriers, create feedback in their equipment. Do it, Thyra ordered, her command voice cutting through fear. Kai, what about evacuation routes? Service tunnels connect to the main cargo system, Kai replied, his freight hauler knowledge suddenly crucial. If we can reach my truck, I know passages that'll take us directly to the Colonial Authority building. Outside, he could hear boots on the stairs, voices coordinating an assault. The building's ancient defense grid hummed to life, but not in its usual half-hearted way. Under the girls' combined influence, The barriers crackled with power that made the air itself thrum with energy. Shouts of surprise came from the stairwell as the first extraction team hit electromagnetic fields strong enough to overload their equipment. Sparks flew as their weapons and communication gear fried. "That won't hold them long," Thyra warned. "They'll adapt." Kai was already moving, gathering emergency supplies, while Rusty herded the girls toward the apartment service entrance. But as they prepared to leave, Zara suddenly stopped, her small face scrunched with concentration. "There are more coming," she whispered, her developing precognitive abilities manifesting under stress. "Lots more, and they have something that makes them not scared of our gifts." Through the window, Kai saw the truth of her words. A second wave of shuttles was landing, these bearing the insignia of Helix Corporation, a megacorp known for its aggressive acquisition of alien technologies. "Nullification fields," Thyra breathed, recognizing the equipment being unloaded. "They've come prepared to suppress Zephyrian abilities entirely." The situation had just become impossible. Without their gifts, the girls were just frightened children, and Thyra was still weakened by illness. Against corporate mercenaries with military-grade equipment, they had no chance. Unless... "The cargo tunnels don't just connect to the authority building," Kai said slowly, a desperate plan forming. "They connect to the colony's main power grid. If we could get there." "You want to overload the entire district?" Thyra asked. "I want to give your daughters the biggest energy source on the planet to work with," Kai replied. "Think they could create enough electromagnetic interference to shut down every piece of electronic equipment in a 10-mile radius." The girls looked at each other, then at their mother. Lyria spoke first. "We've never tried anything that big. Together with the colony's entire power grid to channel." Naia's voice was thoughtful. "Maybe." "It would be dangerous," Thyra warned. "That much energy could harm them." "Staying here will definitely harm them," Kai pointed out. More explosions from above as the extraction teams regrouped with heavier equipment. The decision was made for them. The service tunnels were a maze of maintenance passages that Kai navigated by instinct developed through years of cargo runs. Behind him, Thyra moved with determined precision despite her weakness, while the girls stayed close together, their abilities creating a bubble of calm that kept panic at bay. Rusty led the way, the cat's uncanny sense for danger guiding them away from the most heavily patrolled routes. Twice they had to freeze as mercenaries passed overhead, but the building's construction and the girls' emotional dampening kept them hidden. The central power station was a massive complex of fusion reactors and distribution networks that supplied energy to half the colony. Kai had delivered parts here countless times, knew the layout better than most of the technicians. "Here," he said, leading them to the main control center. "This accesses the primary distribution grid." Lyria approached the master control panel with reverence. "So much power," she whispered. "I can feel it singing." "Can you three work together to channel it?" Kai asked. "Create an electromagnetic pulse big enough to disable every piece of corporate tech in the district." The girls joined hands, forming a triangle around the control interface. Thyra moved to support them, her own depleted abilities adding stability to their connection. "We'll need a focal point," Naia said. "Something to direct the energy precisely." Kai looked down at Rusty, understanding flooding through him. "The cat. He's been bonding with all of you since the beginning. He could be your anchor." As if understanding, Rusty walked calmly into the center of the girls' triangle and sat down, purring. The moment he settled, the air around them began to shimmer with potential energy. "Now," Thyra commanded. The girls' abilities merged and amplified, drawing power from the colony's fusion reactors and focusing it through their combined will. The control room filled with light as energy cascaded through circuits designed for normal electrical loads. Through the station's windows, Kai watched every electronic device in the district simply stop. Shuttles fell from the sky as their engines died. Communication, equipment went silent. Even the mercenaries' enhanced armor systems flickered and failed. In the sudden quiet that followed, only one sound remained: Rusty's triumphant purr and the soft laughter of three little girls who had just demonstrated that with the right support, they were capable of protecting not just themselves, but an entire community. "The colonial authorities will have backup power," Thyra said, gathering her exhausted daughters. "They'll respond to the shutdown. And when they get here, they'll find corporate mercenaries with dead equipment and no legal authority to be here," Kai added with satisfaction. As sirens began wailing across the district, powered by emergency systems the girls had carefully avoided, Kai realized that everything had changed. The children who had been scavenging from trash just days ago had proven themselves capable of feats that would reshape how the colony viewed alien refugees forever. 6 weeks later, Kai stood in the colony's main ceremonial hall, wearing clothes that cost more than he usually earned in a month. The formal ceremony felt surreal after a lifetime of working-class anonymity, but the weight of the moment was undeniable. Governor Martinez stepped forward, carrying an ornate scroll that bore both colonial authority and Zephyrian Confederation seals. "Kai Brennan, by joint decree of the new Geneva Colonial Council and the Zephyrian High Command, you are hereby granted full citizenship in both governments, with all attendant rights and responsibilities." The crowd applauded, a mix of human colonists, Zephyrian dignitaries, and media representatives covering what had become known as the District 7 incident. But Kai's attention was focused on 4 figures in the front row. Thyra wore her full dress uniform, her command insignia newly supplemented by a civilian ambassadorial rank that made her the official liaison between the colony and her people. Beside her, Lyria, Naia, and Zara wore traditional Zephyrian formal robes adapted for children, deep blue fabric that seemed to shimmer with inner light. "Furthermore," the governor continued, "in recognition of your unique service to both species, you are appointed Director of Interspecies Integration Services, with authority to establish policies for refugee assistance and cultural exchange." The position came with a salary that would have seemed impossible just 2 months ago, along with housing in the diplomatic quarter and access to resources Kai had never dreamed of. More importantly, it came with the legal authority to ensure no other families would face what the Solaris children had endured. Ambassador Marix, who had shown considerably more respect since the corporate incident, stepped forward with his own proclamation. The Zephyrian Confederation also recognizes Kai Brennan as an honorary kinsman of the Solaris House, with all traditional rights of family membership. This was the moment Kai had been waiting for. Under Zephyrian law, kinship bonds granted him legal guardianship of the girls and the right to court their mother according to ancient custom. It was formal recognition of what his heart had known since that first day behind the dumpster. These were his people now. After the ceremony, the reception moved to the diplomatic residence that was now officially Kai's home. The building was larger than his entire former apartment building, with gardens where the girls could play safely and workshop spaces where their abilities could be developed properly. "Still can't believe this is real," Kai said to Thyra as they watched the children demonstrate their gifts to fascinated colonial engineers. Zara was making a broken fountain work perfectly, her small hands glowing as water danced in patterns that defied physics. Naia sat with a group of social workers, helping them understand the emotional needs of refugee families through her empathic insights. Lyria worked with senior technicians, solving infrastructure problems that had puzzled experts for years. "They're not the same frightened children you found," Thyra observed. "Having security, having family, has allowed them to grow into their potential. Having someone believe in them," Kai corrected. "You did most of the work." Thyra moved closer to him, close enough that he could smell the faint ozone scent that was uniquely Zephyrian. "I gave them safety and training. You gave them something more important. You gave them love without conditions, protection without expecting anything in return. Their relationship had developed slowly over the weeks of bureaucratic proceedings and media attention. Shared custody had become shared meals, shared responsibility had become shared dreams. The attraction that had sparked during their first crisis had deepened into something substantial and enduring. "Thyra," Kai began, then stopped, suddenly nervous despite everything they'd been through. She smiled, understanding his hesitation. In Zephyrian culture, when someone has proven themselves family through actions rather than birth, there's a ceremony to make the bonds official. "I know about the kinship ritual," Kai said, "but I was thinking of something more permanent." Thyra's eyes widened slightly. Before she could respond, 3 small voices interrupted from behind them. "Are you going to marry Mama now?" Zara asked with the directness only children possessed. "Because you should," Naia added seriously. "The emotional resonance between you two makes everything around us brighter. And if you're officially our father, no one can try to separate us again," Lyria concluded with practical wisdom beyond her years. Kai looked at Thyra, seeing his own emotions reflected in her dark eyes. "What do you think?" "I think," Thyra said carefully, "that my daughters have become very wise since they met you." The wedding took place 3 months later, blending human and Zephyrian traditions in a ceremony that became the template for interspecies unions throughout the colony. Kai wore traditional Zephyrian ceremonial robes that the girls had modified to reflect his human nature, while Thyra's dress incorporated elements of both cultures. But the real celebration was quieter, more personal. On their wedding night, as they settled into their new home with officially adopted daughters sleeping peacefully down the hall and Rusty purring contentedly on the windowsill, Kai reflected on how completely his life had transformed. The interspecies integration services had processed over 300 refugee families in its first year, establishing protocols that were being copied on colonies throughout human space. The girls' abilities had helped solve infrastructure problems affecting thousands of residents, while their story had changed attitudes toward alien refugees across the sector. Most importantly, the hungry children he'd found scavenging from trash had grown into confident young people who would never again know what it meant to be unwanted or unprotected. "What are you thinking about?" Thyra asked, settling beside him with the easy intimacy of true partnership. "Just how much can change when someone decides to share their dinner," Kai replied, pulling his wife close and listening to the sound of his daughter's peaceful breathing. Outside their window, the lights of New Geneva Colony sparkled with unusual efficiency. Maintained by alien technology and human determination, powered by a love that had proven stronger than prejudice, bureaucracy, or corporate greed. Family, Kai had learned, could indeed be made in lots of ways.